Greetings, everybody. My name is Prashana Ambrita Ghosh. I have a master's in education. I am a non-traditional teacher,
which basically means I amplify the perspectives of African and indigenous voices in our world because they are not traditionally taught.
Why this matters? Because ignorance is the result of not knowing, and we have been empowered in that not knowing to form opinions about that which we do not know. And that means intentional or willful ignorance. We have intentionally been fed much ignorance. Why? Because hegemony, the dominant ideological framework of a society, pervaded by its government through its branches of influence, school, media, etc., aka it is what those in power want you to think. And you might be thinking, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Well, more like conspiracy fact. Conspiracy, you see, is the act of a group conspiring against another group. Colonization, which is a very real part of our history on this earth, is the act of one group taking over the land, culture, ideas of another group. Colonization is, in fact, a conspiracy fact. And history has actually been one giant conspiracy. Let's talk critical race theory. Well, you don't even need a theory when you have documented facts. Sociology, political science, African American history, Latin American history, American Indian history, ethnic studies, developmental economics. These are all courses that divulge critical race facts about US policy, both domestic and international. So why know any of this? To stop the ignorance. When we spread the truth of our stories, it leaves far less room for ignorant opinions. Many times, parents wish to protect their children from knowing the truth, but oftentimes this disadvantages our children even more as we then become the purveyors of the very force that has oppressed our families and communities for generations. Knowledge is power. Just like the great Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. We can use it to push for more informed policies and to reach sustaining change. So let's examine what that could look like in Demystifying Politics, aka Proofs in the Pudding, a guide to becoming more informed in America. Let's start with the etymology of politics. So the word politics comes from polites, which means citizen, from polis, which means city. So citizen means an inhabitant of a city or state, or a person or a human who lives there, aka the job of a politician is to serve the needs of their citizens, like all their citizens, not just the ones they favor. So then what is or should be the role of empathy in determining policies that affect human beings? Would you say that empathy is an important trait for a politician to have? Well, let's assess some policies for impact and for empathy. Here's one example. Senator Kamala Harris wanted to deter students from missing too much school or multiple absences. So she proposed legislation that would punish parents with jail time if they had a child who missed over a certain number of school days. Who could be the most vulnerable that would be impacted by a policy such as this? This resulted in a homeless woman to be jailed whose family missed school because they were homeless. Message: always examine potential policies for impact, particularly of the most vulnerable populations. Another example, President Obama, who I respect in many ways, wanted to stop a terrorist group named Al-Qaeda, but he did not want to have to send the US military down on dangerous missions. So he sent out drone strikes to drop missiles and bombs in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen, where Al-Qaeda was known to be. Do you imagine any possible issues with this? If you're guessing civilian casualties, then that's exactly what happened. Hundreds of civilians, innocent civilians, were killed in the process. So again, always examine policies for the vulnerable populations and how it impacted them. We have to be willing to examine every politician and policy for who they impact, without being blinded by things such as identity politics. We can't be afraid of nuanced dialogue, not bashing, just assessment of impact. Because needless to say, Candace Owens and Kanye West and many other people who hold ignorant opinions or who have been behind some harmful policies can also look like us. If we were in their positions, might even sometimes be us. And that is largely because of the system that indoctrinated all of us. We also have to be willing to redefine terms for us. For example, when we look at the political spectrum, we are classically told that conservative means wanting less government intervention, and liberal or progressive means more government intervention. However, when you look at abortion rights, conservatives actually want more government intervention, in spite of not knowing the circumstances of the woman's mental, physical, or emotional health. When it came to protecting U.S. businesses from the consequences of free trade, aka the NAFTA agreement, many conservatives wanted more government intervention to subsidize U.S. farmers, in spite of violating the very agreements their government made, which had favored people in certain developing countries. When it came to the 2008 market crash, many conservatives wanted more government intervention to bail out corporations, not to families who lost their homes. However, when it came to the anti-lynching bill that would protect African Americans from terrorist acts of violence against them, many conservatives wanted less government intervention. The question isn't about how much government control. The question is, who does the government at the time wish to empathize with? And so we must examine the role of empathy in our politicians.
Coming up next,
let's examine a few historical policy cases for exactly that.